Welcome to this brief preliminary practice of how to meet difficult emotions. In this session, we will do three things. First, I would like to share a few facts about emotions that I have found it very helpful to be aware of. Then second, I'd like to explain to you how this practice works. And third, we'll give it a try. We'll practice it together. So, facts about emotions, things I'd like you to be aware of. One of them is simply that emotions, interestingly, have a shelf life, something that's hard to believe when we're in the middle of one, but they do tend to come, they get stronger, and then they go. And that particular fact goes along with the second fact, which is that emotions come in waves. They start small, they get stronger, they reach a peak, and then they begin to recede. It might take them longer or shorter time to recede, but that's how they work. They come in waves. And I bet you've experienced that, or you may have had people tell you that, as I do. I hear people say often, well, my grief comes in waves, or my anger comes back to me in waves. That's just the way emotions work. So the third fact, and I quite love this one because it's so useful, is this. I can be aware that I'm having a difficult emotion even while I'm having it. So the emotion doesn't disappear or evaporate or go away, but I can know that it's happening. I don't have to know, but I can. For example, I can be really angry or irritated about something, and I can be aware of it. Or I might just not be aware of it, and then I'm so busy being angry, that's all I am. But if I can be aware of it, then I have a choice about what I want to do. And the fourth fact, and this one too is super helpful, it's when I'm at the strongest point of an emotion, when I'm feeling an emotion at its strongest, when that's going on, then I tend to believe whatever the emotion is telling me. And not only do I believe it, but I think it's going to be forever. So if I'm aware of that and I really feel a strong emotion, then it might mediate how much I want to engage or what I want to say at that moment, because I might recognize I'm really not my best self right now. I'm just my emotional self. So those are the facts that I wanted to share with you. And what I'd like to do now is explain how this preliminary practice works. And when I say preliminary, this practice you'll learn today is a good one all by itself. Just doing this is helpful. But there's some additional parts to it that I'd love to share with you. We'll do that another time. So for today, here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to explain to you how this works. So I'll do that right now. First, you need to notice when you're having a difficult emotion. Let's say that again. You need to notice it while you're having it. It's very easy not to notice it. So you're busy being angry, but can you also notice, oh, I'm being angry? We'll come back to that, but that's the first thing, is to notice it. Then I'm going to ask you to name it in a silent voice. You're not going to say this out loud to the person you're talking to, but can you, in your silent mind, inside your mind, can you realize what's happening and name what the heck it is? What is this emotion that I'm feeling right now? That's step 2. Step 3. I'm going to ask you to see if you can find any place in your body where you might feel a little bit of extra tightness or tension that might be associated with that strong emotion. We'll talk about how to do that in a moment. And number 4 is, just for today, I'm going to ask you to place the palm of your hand, one hand or both hands, over the place in your body where you think you might feel a little bit of extra tightness. For example, once when I was nervous about something, I felt like I had a knot in my stomach. So if that were the case in this example that you're going to try out today, I would say put your hands over your belly. Or I had someone in a class once say she liked to put her hand on her forehead and the other hand behind her neck, because that's where she felt it. So we'll come back to that when we practice. So now let's try the practice. To start out with, I'd like to ask you to please allow your eyes to gently close or your gaze to drop so you're not distracted by seeing the screen in front of you. And see if you can bring to mind some time in the recent past when you experienced a strong emotion. And on a scale of 1 to 10, don't pick the strongest emotion that you felt in the last 2 weeks. See if you can pick something that's at about a level 5. Strong enough that you can remember it, but not so strong that it completely derails you. Okay? And once you think of something, I'd like you to really bring it to mind in as much detail as you can. Where were you? What were you looking at? Who was there with you? What was being said? See if you can really bring that whole situation to your mind so you can remember what you felt like at that time. And now I'd like you to see if you can notice what is the strong emotion that you're feeling when you remember this memory. And what name would you give to this emotion? It could be one of the primary names like sadness, fear, or anger, or it could be some other flavor. It might be irritation or frustration instead of anger. Or instead of sadness, it might be unhappiness, or it might be grief. Or instead of fear, it might be nervousness, or it might be anxiety. See if you can pick a word that best characterizes the way you were feeling in this memory. And now see if you can silently name it in that curious, interested tone of voice that basically says, I get it. I can see what's happening. And the voice is going to sound like this. Oh, this is anger. That's the voice you want to use. The tone of voice matters. So try it out right now, silently in your own mind. See if you can name the emotion that you're remembering. Oh, this is blank. Okay. And now what I'd like you to do is to see if you can find any place in your body where perhaps you can notice an extra amount, perhaps of tightness or tension that might be associated with that emotion. So you could just start with the top of your head and allow your attention to drift downward in your body. It could be, notice how your forehead, notice how the top of your head feels. Notice how your forehead feels. Notice how your jaws feel. Or maybe I skipped the eyes. Notice how you feel behind the eyes. Notice how your jaws feel. How about your throat or your neck? How do you feel in your chest? How about your shoulders or your shoulder blades? How about your belly? Can you feel it in any of those places? If you can, great, you've decided where you can feel it. If you feel it in many places, which place is the strongest? Or which place makes the most sense to you? And then lastly, if you can't feel it anywhere, just pick a place that makes sense to you. Where do you think you might feel it if you were to feel it anywhere? Pick that place. Once you've chosen your place, I'd like you to take your hands, one hand or both hands, and put the palm of your hand or hands over the place where you think you feel that little bit of tightness. And just take a deep breath in and out of that area. Okay? And that's the whole practice for today. What I'd like you to do for your home practice is to see in everyday life if you can notice while you are experiencing a strong emotion. It might have to do with work. It might have to do with your family. It might have to do with someone that calls you on the phone about insurance. Who knows what it is? But notice if you're having a strong emotion and see if you can silently name it. Oh, this is frustration. And then just see, is there any place you can notice it in your body? And then, if you like, you could put your hand over that place and take a breath. What I really would like you to do is to get super good at being able to notice when you're having a strong emotion and then naming it. And next time we'll talk about some additional steps you can try out. So thank you very much for joining me for this, and I wish you well with your practice.